I knew I was going to spend the rest of my life in this country.
And this was 1985?
1985. And that love affair, which was instant, is still there for me today. Because when I travelled, it would not be get to the airport and it begins. It would be get to a location you've pre-chosen and then spend all your money. I was an extreme backpacker.
You'd spend all your money?
All my money. And if I had any coins left, I'd give them to a beggar. I guess single guys will appreciate it, but I was kind of a little bit into the bar scene for a few years and kind of lost my way, I guess you could say.
Hey folks, Pete here from Thairish Times. How's it going? If I said to you that Thailand is full of interesting characters, would you believe me? You probably would. You've probably met some interesting characters when you've been over here, or if you live over here, or perhaps you're an interesting character yourself. And that's exactly who we're going to talk to today. We're going to talk to a man called Paul, who has very interesting stories. He's been in Thailand for 36 years, which is longer than I've been alive. Now, if you can hear that sound, I don't know if you can, but over there in those bushes, there's an insect called a cicada. And every time I speak, this insect starts up making this noise. And it's the bane of my life. I've been up here trying to get this shot now for about 20 minutes, and every time I talk, he's gone off. Look, stopped, ran out of energy. Right, we keep this rolling here. Anyway, where was I? Yeah, Paul, interesting character from England. And we're gonna start now with Paul telling us about his childhood, and then he's going to get into backpacking throughout Europe, and then he's going to get into his crazy, interesting Thailand stories. And we've done a couple of episodes with Paul, so there'll be more than one coming. So let me know in the comment section what you think. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel, please subscribe, share and like. And check out that beautiful Bangkok skyline. Huh? You wouldn't want to have a fear of heights. Woo. All right, let's go meet Paul. So Paul, tell us about your early life.
Early life. In many ways I had a great childhood. I guess we were a middle-class family. Father worked for a printing company, mother was a Tupperware agent, and yeah, it was all good until I was 16 and you know, was told that yes, I can leave school, and you know, they're not going to be together anymore. My mother had a new boyfriend, my father had a girlfriend, so it was all pretty much amicable, and it was a bit like being fish out of water for a while, you know. Within 3 or 4 weeks of living on my own and working in this factory, I hooked up with a bunch of guys who would be, what, 21 I suppose, and we were down the pub at every opportunity, you know. I was playing in the pub darts team before I was allowed to legally drink, you know. And as nice as that was for a young guy, I kind of looked up to these guys. I kind of went a bit higher, if you know what I mean, and looked down on it and thought, well, okay, what is my life going to be like here, you know? And I noticed that single guys would drink and party and do what they do, you know, until they meet a girl, and then it's marriage, and you know. And I started to ask people, are you happy? You know, people of my age, people of 25, people of 40 years old, I just go up to them and say, excuse me, can I ask you a question? Are you happy with your life? And I never got anybody over a period of 2 or 3 months that said yes. It's okay, but, you know, I don't like my job, and if that was okay, stuff like that. So I kind of thought, you know, there must be more to life than this. And I also thought, well, if I was born in a huge mansion, you know, with 150 bedrooms or 150 rooms, would I spend my entire life in that one room? No. I'd want to go and find other rooms, have a look in other rooms, because there might be something that I like, you know. And I could be living next door to a perfect kind of lifestyle and not know it. So I kind of had this idea to travel. And it seemed to come along at just the right time. I sat in a pub garden on a Sunday morning. I'd be 17 and a half, And this tramp, you know, guy, homeless guy, big beard, not the cleanest of clothes, came in with his beer, and there's lots of tables on this lovely lawn, and he came over, he said, do you mind? No, sit down. A bit taken aback, you know. And he went on to tell me about how he ran away from home at the age of 13 and hid on this container ship and went off to Jamaica and, you know, spent some time there, and then he went to Bali and married this fishing girl, and then he went to India, and he did all these things. And for about 2 hours I'm listening to this. You know. And he looked at me and he said, there's a terrible, terrible pain when you get old. What's that then? He said, it's not cancer or anything like that. He said, you know, some people, when they're on their deathbed or their time is near, they suddenly get hit with this realization that they didn't really do anything with their life. They never put their foot to the floor. They never explored the possibilities. He said, and when that hits you, he said, it goes down to the bone and even down to the soul. And his parting words to me were, don't sit and wait to see what life has to offer you, young man. You take life by the ankles and you shake it upside down and see what's in there. And that kind of inspired me to get a passport and go.
Where'd you go?
First place I went to was France. I still wasn't 18 yet. I got my passport. Went to France, and within 3 or 4 days I kind of lost my whole world. Well, literally lost my whole world. I'm on this ramp going onto one of the motorways because I'm chasing the sun, you know. Wherever I go, it's got to be in the sun. So I'm on the ramp of the motorway there, and I'm going like that, and this red MG Sport, still with no top, you know, soft top car, he pulls up a bit in front of me and he says, throw your bag in the back, boy, and get in. So I put my backpack in the back and, whoa, see ya, sucker. And there's me standing on the side of the road with absolutely nothing. I've got my passport and money, luckily, tied around my waist. You know, I knew that much at that early age. And I was gutted. But within 3 weeks, I had it all back. Not exactly the same stuff, but somebody had got me a backpack and I'd got clothes. And yeah, I lost my journals. That was a bummer, but never mind. And I met some great people, and they took me to a place called Beaune in central France, and we picked grapes, you know. We did that for about 5 or 6 weeks, and then they took me down to Greece because they knew where we could go and pick tomatoes, and I really fell on my feet, and I started to think to myself, okay, whenever I go off the rails, you know, off the standard track, so to speak, these pretty amazing things happen to me. So I was kind of motivated to keep doing that, and every time I did, great things happened, you know. I suppose within 6 months I knew where I could get work at any time of the year in Europe or the North African continent, and I pretty much did that. I'd go home maybe June, July, August, carry bricks because it was good money, you know, and I'd see all my friends in the pub and they'd listen to all my stories and go, wow. And I'm like, well, what about you guys? Johnny Herbert died. Oh, okay. And Pat's not with his girlfriend anymore. Oh, okay. And you know, after a while, I stopped telling them what I was doing because they didn't believe it. They didn't believe what was happening to me. The stories I was telling them, they didn't believe me, and I soon learned, no, this is for me, you know, this is my experience, and yeah.
Their lives had just been completely gone off in
nothing had changed. Nothing had changed. Everything was the same for them, and none of them were happy about it. And I could not understand why they didn't look further afield, you know. But they were quite happy with their. I used to talk to one guy of my age, and I said, "So what do you think then for life?" He says, I'll meet some girl and I'll probably get her pregnant, you know, and we'll get a house together and work for 40 odd years until I get my pension. And I thought, my God, no, that's not for me.
So Paul, you were disillusioned with people and life back in England. So talk us through how you ended up coming to Thailand.
Well, I suppose 9-10 years I travelled mainly in Europe, North Africa, Israel, Egypt, and I guess I was ready to go further afield. And at that time, in 1985, there was no internet, so I spent the morning at a library, and I thought about it, and I thought, I don't want to go to Malaysia, it's colonised, you know. I don't want to go to Burma, and Cambodia didn't sound too attractive. Vietnam, I didn't have a feeling for that, but Thailand certainly interested me. So I kind of planned it like I normally do. One-way ticket, and got the money together that I could, and got on my plane, got on the flight. And when they opened the doors at the old Don Muang airport, I got hit by this blast of furnace of heat, you know, and I'm like, wow. And for the first 24 hours, I could only describe Thailand as being a serious assault on my senses. Sight, sound, everything. And these people were so goddamn happy. And I don't know, I just, within 24 hours, I lost the desire to travel. I'd always been afraid of becoming a 60-year-old backpacker. You know, I once saw one guy who was 37, and I thought, 37, and he's still doing it. And so I had visions of what's going to happen to me. Am I going to go around the world 3.5 times and then decide to go back the other way? But I just was looking for a place, and once I'd found it, that desire to travel totally left me within the space of 24 hours. I knew I was going to spend the rest of my life in this country.
And this was 1985?
1985. And that love affair, which was instant, is still there for me today. This country has, there's something, you either love it or you hate it. And it's just my place, you know. Somebody else's might be Bali, or somebody else's might be, you know, Costa Rica. But for me, I'd been to some beautiful places where the people were a bit, and the culture was a bit, and Thailand, it had it all for me.
So talk us through your adventures in Thailand. I know you have some stories.
The start, let's go from the beginning then. Okay. I thought, where am I going to go? So I wanted to go south. I wanted to get as near as the equator as I could. So I get off this train and everybody's looking at me, and I mean everybody. You've got to remember that back in those days, yes, you'd see a few foreigners in Bangkok and the touristy areas, but not anywhere else. And so I was instantly the focus of attention, which made me a little uncomfortable. So I saw this shop on the side of the road, and we're talking about 8 o'clock in the morning, and I put my backpack down and asked the guy if I could have a beer, and he brought the beer over with some ice and a cold wipe, and I thought, so wonderful, they give you everything. And so I'm sitting there drinking my beer, and all these people are coming past, and they're going like this to me, you know, like we're tying, winding them back. People in cars are doing it, people on bikes are doing it. And I thought, oh God. And then I looked behind me and I realized there's this huge Buddhist monument there. They're not whying me at all, they're whying the Buddha. So I suddenly realized this, oh okay, that's good. And I almost got down to the end of my beer, and a monk came across the road. And he looked at me and he said, don't see many foreigners here, in a very good English accent. So I'm like, oh. So I sit down, and what are you doing here, he said. I said, well, I don't know. This is my first start of my adventure in Thailand, really. Because when I travelled, it would not be get to the airport and it begins. It would be get to the airport, get to a location you've pre-chosen, and then spend all your money. You I was an extreme backpacker. I started doing that in Europe.
You'd spend all your money?
All my money. And if I had any coins left, I'd give them to a beggar. This would be start point for me.
And how did you survive after you spent all your money?
Depends where I was. Sometimes I'd just meet somebody, you know, and I'd get some work, and I learned that in train stations you can get a cup of coffee out of all the bottom coin dispensers and things like that. It wasn't something for me to be afraid of. It was something to me to be excited about, because it always worked out every time I did it, without fail. And here was no exception. The monk said to me, are you on a schedule? I said, no, not at all. He said, well, our temple's about 20 kilometers south of the city. Would you consider coming to stay there for a while? You know, you could teach some of the kids and the Buddhist monks to speak English. Yeah, sure. So within 3 hours of getting off a train in a huge city where I can't speak the language, within 2 hours I've got a place to stay, something to do, and the beginning of a new experience. And I stayed in the south of Thailand for 14 months, and I'd had enough. I thought, okay, it's wonderful here, and it's been great, but now I'll go back to the city. Let's go make some money, you know. So I had a good set of clothes that I always kept, and I got a job teaching English in Bangkok, which was pretty easy in those days. You know, if you had a tie and you could speak the language, you're in. You know, spent a few years doing that. Kind of, you know, I guess single guys will appreciate it, but I was kind of a little bit into the bar scene for a few years, and kind of lost my way, I guess you could say.
Were you drinking a lot at the time?
Oh yes. Drank a lot all my life, because I came from a culture where it was normal to be on a mind-altering substance, whether it be alcohol or weed or something else. The generation I grew up with, it was normal. And I was a big drinker, and never really gave any thought to the future, I guess you could say. I ploughed my way through my life, you know, with reckless abandon, I guess you could say that. Then I got into teaching a special school. When I say special, this was a school that was owned by a foundation, run by a foundation. And they knew that the best way to learn is by doing, hands-on. Yeah. And unfortunately in Thailand at that time, it's all rote learning. You know, the kids sit in front of a desk with their exercise books and their textbooks, and the teacher instructs them at the front, and you don't ask any questions. So they wanted to get away from that, you know, project-based learning, and teaching them things like, you know, problem-solving skills, initiative, you know, collaboration. So it was a bold move. I mean, it really was. But they had the money, and they brought over foreign teachers, and I became like a translator facilitator for the school, because the American teachers they brought over to workshop the Thai teachers would be there for 3 weeks, and they didn't speak a word of Thai. So I was the linchpin, if you like.
And you're fluent in Thai?
I'm fluent in Thai now, yeah, thanks to that job. It was difficult, but it was a learning experience, and I had some great experiences doing that. And then I got disillusioned with teaching, and for me, you know, if I don't get anything out of it, it's time to stop. It doesn't matter what it is. And so I felt, now this is it for me, teaching, and I wanted to write some books. So I quit teaching. I did some online blogging. I wrote a few books and sold a few books, and I'm still a writer now, and always have been, I guess.
So what do you do now for work?
I have a team of SEO, web content writers, that I manage, and it's well, we live in a digital world now, don't we? So, and I write blogs about all kinds of things, and you know, it's a strategy of SEO called outreach blogging, and so I do that. Yeah. I enjoy my work.
Now you told me that you are a bit of you live a hermit's lifestyle. You don't really go outside too much.
Right. I'd say in the last 2 years, I've probably been outside this village 3 times. I go to the market across the street a couple of times. But yeah, I've withdrawn from society by choice, and have very little interaction with people outside of my family. Actually, that's not true. I Zoom people, I Skype people. But yeah, I don't really have a reason to go anywhere. So I'm kind of withdrawn, I guess you might say. Kind of.
Are you a married man?
I am.
How did you meet your wife?
My God. She's heard me tell a few people this story, so
she's behind it.
Yeah, no, I'm sure she'll be
hear.
okay with it. But I'm going to tell it as it is.
Okay. That's what we like here.
At that time, I was a freelance teacher. I worked for a guy called John Marriott on Sukhumvit 26, and he had mainly Japanese students, you know, who wanted to improve their English. So I'd be getting 400 baht an hour, which was a lot of money then, to go and teach these Japanese students. And I had one brother and sister, and they were on the 16th floor of this big condo, and I used to go there twice a week, you know, and ring the bell, and they'd open the door and let me in, and I'd go and teach these kids, and everything was fine. Then one day I get out of the lift, and I'm there, and ring the bell, and nothing happens. So, never happened before. Got some paper and a pen out of my bag and wrote, you know, I arrived, blah, 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 this time. No, I'll call again later. And I put it under the door. And as I did that, the door of the other condo on that unit, because on that floor, opened. And these are big units, you know, these are wealthy expats working there for the big corporations, and they've got maids and everything. So this maid came out, this girl, and she looked at me like that and put her back there. So I had a cigarette at the balcony, and she came out and went down one floor, and she's talking to one of her friends, and in Thai she says, hey, there's a Farang upstairs, and I'm going to get him to take me out for a really nice meal somewhere nice, you know, and then just say goodbye. And so I heard this, and okay, I happen to be fluent then, you know. So she comes back up, and I said, oh yeah, would you like to go and eat something? She said, yeah. I said, tomorrow at 5 is okay? Yeah. So I turn up at 5 o'clock the next night. I park my motorcycle in there, and I walk with her. I get her to walk in the sun with me for about 300 meters to a kutiao, you know, a noodle stall on the street. And I sat her down there with me and ordered water and noodles and said, you know, American share, you know, 50-50. She said, I pay everything. And she got up and walked off, and I thought, that's the end of that. Next week I'm there, and she's out there again. All very nice and smiling at me, and she said, oh, would you like to take me to watch a movie? Yeah, okay, why not? Let's do that. Oh, Saturday evening then, you know, can you come at 7? Yeah. So I thought, let's see what happens, you know, what other tricks she's got up her sleeve. And so I get there, and she's with a friend of hers who's a rather large girl who's got to be at least 10 years older than my wife to be, and she just keeps pushing me towards her, you know. I'll sit next to her, you know, and we go in a bar and she talk to her, you know. It's just so obvious. It was just, and I looked at her and I said, I'm not interested in your friend. I'm more interested in you. Didn't change anything. So we watched the movie, we come out after that, and she then tells me that her and her friend want to go to Pat Pong because they've never been there. Okay, go to Pat Pong. So we jump in a tuk-tuk, we go there, we get in this discotheque, and you know, we've got drinks there, and I'm dancing I asked them if they wanted to come and dance, and they said no, and I knew some of the girls in there, so I'm dancing away there, and all of a sudden, the big girl, my wife's friend, comes running over and kisses me on the side of the cheek, and then goes running back. So,
what year is this?
1993. Well, we've been together 27 years, so I don't know. do the
Yeah,
math.
they do the math.
So
90s,
I realised at this point that I know what the game is here, and I'm just not up for it. So I go back to them. They're both sitting there looking at me like this, you know. I haven't paid the bill yet. This is a ticket place, you know. So I'm just going outside to have a cigarette. I'll be back. Outside, tuk-tuk, off I go to Soy Cowboy, laughing my head off, saying, well, okay, you want to play these silly games, away you go. The next morning in my apartment, the phone rings, and there weren't mobiles then, and it's her. How dare you? How dare you stand me up like that? I had to pay the bill. And I said, look, let's cut the crap. You're obviously not interested in me, you know. You already said you wanted to milk me for a good meal, and it's been quite obvious that you've been just passing your friend off to me, and I'm not interested in your friend, so I'm sorry, you know. I want to come and see you. Okay. So she came to see me, and she said, sorry about that. I won't play games anymore. So we got to know each other, and she was nice, and you know, the fact that she wasn't a bar girl was like, I don't think I'd ever really sat down and talked to any Thai woman at that point outside of work that wasn't, you know. And so she was very refreshing, and she kind of provided an anchor for me. I mean, I've always said this, and she agrees. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for her, for meeting her.
Why?
It kind of gave me an anchor. It gave me a reason to stop chasing what I knew was basically short-term pleasure, you know. And I worked on the relationship with her. It's not easy. They never are, you know, intercultural marriages, relationships. Yeah, we became a number, and we decided to get married and have a kid, and we did, and then we had another one, and I have to be honest that there were times when it's very difficult, because I knew that, I mean, we're talking about here, no disrespect to her at all, but we're talking about a girl from the provinces that left school at 13 and ran away and got a job in a sewing factory, and then as a maid, never been anywhere, never done anything, never seen anything. And it was very difficult for us to find a middle ground. And the thing that saved us in the end was I realized, and nobody's taught this girl to think critically, you know. She doesn't know how to weigh situations up and decide what's good and what's bad. So I sat her down one day and got all these things on the table, you know. I said, okay, now that's your friend Wan, right? Yeah, and your friend Wan's got this situation with this person. And then this happens, and then what do you do? Well, I don't know. So you got to do something. So if you did that, what would happen? No, that wouldn't be a good idea. And by a process of elimination, I tried to teach her how to think critically. Having been a teacher already for, 10 years by the time I met her, I knew what the Thai education system was like. It doesn't promote creative thinking or initiative at all. And so I basically had to teach her how to think and critically. And yeah, we went through our bad spots, but I'm happy to say that I can't remember the last time we even had a crossed word. Having said that, I have to make this very clear. A girl who came from a village in northeast Thailand, and left school when she was 13, knows never been anywhere or done anything, taught me so much about life. And I'm a guy who's been everywhere and done everything, and I was humbled by the lessons I got from that girl, you know, about, you know, being sincere and not getting bothered about stuff. And I learned as much from her as she did from me, as crazy as that might sound.
Well, Paul, tell you what we'll do. We'll leave it there. That was an absolutely amazing story. I didn't even have to really ask too much. It was just let you talk. Sometimes you don't need to interrupt. But I'll tell you what we will do now, because sometimes when you're doing what I'm doing, you realise when you hit a gold mine, and I know you've got some great stories. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop the camera. We're going to finish this one.
Okay.
And we're going to go straight into another one, because I know, yeah, I've got the pen and paper here. We're going to figure out what we're going to do.
Great.
I know it's going to be good.
Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. And if you like this content, like, subscribe, share, and leave us a comment. I'm very interested to know what you think about our conversation. Cheers.